Many firms, particularly in the last few decades, have considered it extremely important to contribute to the social welfare. Both it's good for PR and it's also, turns out, especially American companies, they just want to do a lot of this, which is wonderful. The downside is that many of these efforts tend to be very difficult to maintain. So a company says, all right, if you buy this product, we'll donate 20% to some charitable company. Well, in order for that to be sustainable over the long term, that means the company needs to be getting a large portion of that 20% back in terms of increased sales. Like people say, oh, I really want to help this company because they're donating to charity. It turns out that almost never works. The problem with corporate social responsibility efforts is that there's no way to signal that. You buy the shirt at the Gap, and maybe you bought it because you really support Project Red, but maybe you bought it because you think red shirts are kind of attractive. We tried to, in this experiment, combine these two forces, the notion of this charitable giving and pay-what-you-want pricing, in the effort to sort of look for something which was sustainably profitable. Our experiment took place at a very large amusement park, at one particular ride in the park, a very popular ride, as it turns out. And you get on the ride, and it's entertaining and wonderful, and at some point on the ride, they take a digital photo of you. Then when you disembark, they show that photo on monitors, sort of in the exit area, and you are given an opportunity to buy a print of that photo. Traditionally, this firm had been selling the photos at a standard fixed price of $12.95. And some people buy them, some people choose not to, and they go to the rest of the amusement park for the rest of the day. What we did in our experiment was manipulate those prices. So sometimes we used the regular $12.95 pricing, but on other days we said we used a pay-what-you-want strategy. And the customers were told, today you can pay whatever price you would like, including $0. In addition, we manipulated one other factor, which was some of the time it was just as I described it, but then for half the participants we told them, today half the money you spend is going to be donated to a charity. And we name the specific charity, which is a patient support foundation, which is very well liked. So our primary findings come in two forms. The first question you might ask is, well, how many people bought photos? And it turns out at $12.95, that is the standard price, about 0.5% of people buy photos. Right? So you can think of that as a lot of people or a small number of people. That is, they have about 15,000 customers a day go through this ride, so 0.5% is still a lot of photos. When you add the charitable element, much like we see in other firms, there's an increase in sales, but not a lot. It goes from about 0.5% to about 0.6%. Right? So you say, all right, so this charitable giving promotion does a little bit, but not a whole lot. Then we have a different question. So when with these pay-what-you-want conditions, what you see is people also buy the picture much more. Right? So that's the first thing that we see. In regular pay-what-you-want, instead of it being 0.5% as it was before, it's now about 8%. So more than an order of magnitude increase in sales. What they don't do is pay very much. So they spend about 92 cents for a photo, which is more than zero, but on the other hand is very close to cost of production. So that treatment, strict pay-what-you-want, one of the almost notable findings is that in this case, strict pay-what-you-want is absolutely not profitable. So it's that fourth treatment that carries most of the interest here. And that's when we say it's pay-what-you-want pricing plus half the money is going to go to charity. And you see two things, and they're related. The first is that fewer people buy the photo in that treatment than do in strict pay-what-you-want pricing. So at pay-what-you-want pricing, 8%, I said, bought it. In pay-what-you-want plus charity, it's about 4%. The second factor, of course, that is implied in all of this is that they pay substantially more. So instead of 92 cents, they're paying about $5.50. What that means is that that treatment, Pay What You Want plus charity, generates the most profit for the company. That is, say, not only is it more profitable than all the other treatments in terms of simple terms, like how much money the company gets, but it also, that is, in fact, allowing for there's a substantial charitable surplus that gets to go to the charity itself. I think that a non-trivial part of why companies don't try this sort of strategy more often is that it's scary. That's my first thought. And that is to say, if you own your own firm, every decision feels so consequential, so terrifying. Wow, if we raise prices, maybe no one will come to our restaurant anymore. If we lower prices, maybe people will come, but we won't make enough money to keep things going. So the status quo is incredibly appealing. And something like this, Pay What You Want plus with charity, feels like just totally out of left field. One of the unanswered questions is how sustainable this practice is over the long term. Maybe if the company adopted it for the long term, they would show that over time, maybe their customers came to expect it a little bit more. And instead of, maybe they said, well, yesterday I paid $5.50 for a photo, so today maybe I'll only spend $2.50, and tomorrow maybe only $1. And if a trend like that starts emerging, then the marginal benefit for the company is going to go down, the marginal benefit for the charity is going to go down. The one argument actually that works against that goes back to one of the facts I cited before, which was that you get this peculiar drop in the purchase rate between regular Pay What You Want pricing and Pay What You Want plus charity. And almost all of that is attributable to simply removing, if you will, all of those people who would have bought the photo at a lower price. And as far as we can tell, the reason they're not buying the photo at $0, at 50 cents, and so on, is because that just feels inappropriate to go cheap when there's a charity involved. And so there is a built-in social norm that's telling people this is not the case where you're supposed to look for the lowest possible price. This is one where you're supposed to be a little bit more generous. And I tend to think that that is something that would be more stable over time. When we think about how to make corporate social responsibility sustainable in the long term, this is one very peculiar strategy, Pay What You Want pricing and charitable giving. But I think there's an element which should be more general, which is to say, one of the things that holds back corporate social responsibility efforts is, if you will, a distrust of the firm from the customer's perspective. Gosh, they say they're going to give something to charity, but I don't really know how much, and maybe they're just trying to manipulate me. What you want is a system which is, if you will, necessarily honest. And that's part of what the Pay What You Want strategy offers. If you offer your customer a chance to pay absolutely zero, there can't be any sinister motives in the firm. They've given you the keys to the car, right? And I think that maybe Pay What You Want pricing is the most extreme form, but you can give your customers a little bit more identification, a little more choice in the task, and give them more of a sense of ability to control it. So maybe it's not just 10% will be donated to Sierra Club, but you might say, today with your purchase, you as a customer can designate where you want the money to go. And that process of being able to designate it allows the customer a chance to express their identification. Oh, I'm a big supporter of Sierra Club, or I'm a big supporter of the United Way. But it also means that, gosh, they allowed me to choose this. Maybe this company is really taking it seriously. They want me as a customer to be involved in their social responsibility. And I think that's the element. And so you don't necessarily have to go all the way over to this very peculiar pricing strategy. Smaller steps along the way should yield similar benefit.